Hey everyone, you're watching Bill Making Stuff. I don't have a f***ing clue why.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 40. Now, I want to say thank you to Lockie from Zorp Gaming for that lovely intro. He's got a really good channel. Go check it out. He does a lot of Middle Earth stuff, but he is Australian. He is trying to move to New Zealand, so he is trying to, better himself. Today is all about kit bashing. I want to kit bash a team for Stargrave. I already have a team, but I want two teams, a house team and a guest team, if I ever have a guest. It's not likely. I mean, I could use it to play solo on my own, or I could maybe talk my wife into playing it. Or I could teach my 3-year-old son to play it. That's more likely. I get a lot of people asking, Bill, do you script your pieces to camera? The answer is no, and that's why they vary so greatly. Sometimes I try and be funny because I'm in a good mood. Sometimes I don't really try too hard because I can't be bothered. Basically, I improvise. Make it up. No, it says improvise. That was actually an improvised joke. I make it up as I go along. That is why it's so incoherent and weird, shall we say. I've got to fill those empty silences with something. So if you're going to kit bash your own team, you need some miniatures, and I picked these Woodland Indians, these Native American miniatures. They're 28mm, and they're from some game I've never heard of. But the reason why I picked them is because they're almost naked. Essentially, I just wanted a bit of skin. There's a reason for that, and I'll tell you later. I need 10 figures to make a team for Stargrave, and I think you can make 24 miniatures out of all these bits. So, I've got bits to play with. So I get a lot of people asking me what tools they should get and use, so I'm going to try and incorporate that into this video somehow. I might go through a little list of tools you might need to kit bash. If you're lucky, if you stick around. I might forget. So now it's time to snip all these body parts out and sort them out into their little piles. This is the most tedious thing in the world ever, but I'm sure I'll make some weird catchy edit. And there we go. So predictable, Bill. So predictable. Now I know I just listed a ton of tools, and I'm going to be very honest with you, I'm probably going to use about half of them. Get out of the way. All you're going to need is a knife, some clippers, a nail file and some super glue. I mean, that's pretty much all you're going to need. But if you do go to the pound shop, I suggest picking up these kind of nail file, these foamy nail files, because you can cut them into any shape you want. I believe technically they're called emery boards, but you can cut those into these kind of tiny little sanding sticks. People actually sell these as sanding sticks. You can just make your own to get those uncomfortable, you know, hard to reach places. Nice. So I just want to have a quick sketch first before I start building. So I'm going to go for a grid pattern. I basically want to design 8 different minis, not to make them specifically, but just to kind of generate ideas of what kind of weird bits and pieces to add and mix over the 10 minis. Also, I got this new pen. So my original idea was a gang called the Rusters, and they're just some weird bandit, raider type people, savages that just love covering themselves in rusty metal. So I do have more lore to go with these Rusters, but I'm not going to go on about it here. They basically worship giant god warrior heads that stick out of the ground, the size of like mountains. And they worship rust and blood. They use blood to rust their armor. It's the only moisture they can kind of really get. So, you know, the more rusty you are, the more people you've killed. And they like spikes. So obviously, the rustier they are, the tougher they are. I think for weapons, they're going to be using giant sheets of metal formed into swords, like big buster swords, spears. And they're going to use guns too, but they're kind of guns that they've pieced together using other bits of guns and kind of jury rigged. Yeah, basically just rusty, savage, bandit, raiders that like to stab people. You know, nice people like that. So let's put some minis together. I'm going to use this extra thin cement. This kind of, it's like acetone, but it's not. And it kind of melts the plastic and you weld it together. It takes a long time. Well, not really that long, but it's longer than super glue, which I usually use. But yeah, it feels like you have to hold it together for a long time for it to actually bond. And then you pop back in half hour and an arm just drops off. But once it does bond, it's really strong. But I don't like it. But I'm going to use it because apparently it's strong. Whatever. So earlier I mentioned I needed half-naked miniatures for this project. You know, I needed to see some skin. That's not always a prerequisite when I'm buying miniatures. I'm not your dad. But, you know, basically I'm going to be chucking tons of rusty plates of metal and armor pieces onto these guys. And if they were too chunky, it would look a bit silly. I mean, they're probably going to look silly anyway. But, you know, less silly. Just a little break. That is a good cup. That is a pretty good cup. I mean, the coffee is crap, but the cup, completely waterproof, hasn't leaked once. Amazing. So we're going to be using some styrene plastic card for this build. There's always cheap alternatives. Go look at some of my previous videos. It's a bit fancy pants, I know. And we're going to be using, I don't know, just random bits of plastic, like these little plastic cotton buds that you can't get hold of anymore. And we're going to be using my greebly cheese board. Look at that. Disgusting. But it's, you know, it's handy. Also, someone suggested making a little tin foil tray for the glue instead of ruining my little metal dishes. And yeah, it works out really well. Thank you very much, whoever that person was. Along with beads, I have a ton of these little sequins, so I'm going to use those. And I'm basically just going to pull out any interesting plastic shape and chuck it on my cheese board. This stuff was sold as confetti, and I got to be honest, if you can buy any of these items, buy this stuff. It's so useful for kit bashing. I find often in craft shops you find these kind of weird stickers, these hard plastic stickers that basically make good bolts or rivets. Always pick those up. And some tiny beads. Always need some tiny beads. Tiny beads. Now these rivet shaped things were from a diamond painting art set. I don't know, you stick these little diamonds by numbers on a piece of card and it makes a picture. I don't know. They're really good rivets. And just some more sequins. Anyway, let's get on with it. I have another cheese board that I haven't ruined that I'm going to use to cut stuff on. So I'm going to be using this styrene plastic card as little plates of armor. I'm going to cut them up into different size rectangles and I'm going to kind of weather them too. You know, it's best to weather before we stick on. Scratch it up like that. And maybe bend them once in a while on a little bit of wire. And yeah, let's glue them on. So when I stuck the armor on, I had to think about how it would actually work, and I kind of wanted a scale effect, like, you know, they would overlap each other, like in a scale pattern. So some of you may remember these pumpkin teeth I never used in the Halloween episode, but now I'm going to use them as weird helmets for my rusters. They're going to basically be like empty artillery shells that have been hollowed out and some eye holes drilled in, and they're going to be weird helmets. Basically the story is they kind of look like the giant robot warrior god heads in the ground. You know, it's a giant cone, so they like to replicate their gods by making weird helmets. It's weird. I'm going to explain it properly some other day. But, you know, for now, he has a cone helmet. Look. So we're going to need some spikes. I'm going to be honest, it's an absolute nightmare to stick this wire on. I mean, it's an absolute nightmare to do anything at this scale. But once they're on, they look pretty good. We need spikes, let's be honest. So I wanted to create a finer scale mail pattern, and I've used these sequins. I cut them in half. I'm not sure what shape they are. They're kind of like I don't want to say vagina. But yeah, cut them in half and it makes a really fine scale mail. So I got a ton of these beads. I think they're like water beads. They expand with water, but they cut so easy and they're so easy to shape. And I'm going to use one as a helmet. And to be honest with you, I'm probably going to use this for any curved armor shape. See, I told you. One way to really sci-fi these guys up is to change the weapons. So this is my kit bashing box. It's full of all sorts of 40k and Stargrave bits. Always keep your bits. That's why we always tell you, keep your bits. So this is some World War II machine gun, and I really like the kind of exhaust at the end. So I'm going to use that and mix it with some other gun bits and make some jewelry rig gun that looks kind of, you know, just sci-fi. I don't like that hand. Hand's got to go. I'm sorry, mate. I'm sorry. It's gone. So like in my designs, I'm going to replace some of the hands and legs and arms with rusty bits of metal. So I'm just going to interrupt myself by talking about the patron challenge that we had this month. I asked my patrons to kind of destroy dinosaur toys and make weird creatures like, you know, that thing I did a couple of videos ago. And this is what they did. Obviously went a bit more extreme than I did. You know, they were a bit disturbed. So to make these rusters extra fabulous, I'm going to accessorize. Basically pick any little gas tanks and bits of bandolier and a skull. So I didn't really notice at the time, but these skulls were way off scale. They're from the Games Workshop box of skulls. And yeah, they're much bigger than the actual skulls of the people carrying them. But, you know, it just means they're extra tough, doesn't it? They killed someone with a giant big melon head. So So I found this jewelry chain. It's actually a really good scale for 28mm. I mean, it's still quite big, chunky chain, but you know, you get big, chunky chains, don't you? Anyway, these rusters love chains, so let's bling them up. No, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I'm a massive Final Fantasy fan, and I wanted to make a big, giant, rusty buster blade, a ruster buster blade, if you will. And yeah, this was my attempt. But yeah, I think Final Fantasy builds in the future. Let me know if that's interesting to you in the comments down below. So I like the idea of having a glaive gun, like a gun at the end of a long stick with a blade, like a big spear with a gun at the end of it. But apparently this is a thing, and my friend Eric at Eric's Hobby Workshop said it's called a glizzy. No, I'm not sure if that's true. Perhaps some people can confirm, but this is a glizzy. So we're making scale armor work from the bottom up and overlap from above, if you know what I mean. Basically like that. Yeah, I'm showing you as I tell you. And I want this guy to have lots of spears. I added a Predator, the movie inspired grenade spear on the back because, you know, sci-fi. So using bits of styrene, I made this guy some like a really crap Wolverine claw, you know, a really budget kind of one you'd find in a pound shop. I found it really fun coming up with weird and abstract face masks and helmets for these guys. This one's kind of strange. I decided to go even more abstract with the next helmet. Basically, I just layered a load of pieces of styrene and cut it into a shape. I mean, not the most practical helmet, but you know, it's all religion, isn't it? All a bit silly. So the rusters need a leader, and I've always had this design for a scrap knight, basically a man who's made a suit of armor out of scrap metal. I have a whole story about him, but I'll maybe tell you in the future if you're interested. Basically, lots of armor plates. So I like the idea of the ruster leader being so tough and heavily armored. He can literally just walk up to you and cut you in half with a giant rusty glaive. So that's what I made. So there we go, there's 10 rusters, all ready for some sexy prime time. So open a window, you know, light a candle, and let's start spraying. Sexy. That was quite a lot of work, to be honest. I didn't realise how long it would take to kit bash 10 miniatures. At least try and make them all kind of look a little bit different. But now here's the worst part, where I get to paint 10 miniatures. I'm terrible at painting. I paint my miniatures like I paint my terrain. Block out colours and just cover them in a wash and dry brush once in a while. But, you know, let's see how that goes. That might work. So let's paint some minis, shall we? I'm exaggerating. I don't mind painting minis that much. I'm actually starting to enjoy it. But I don't have the patience of a Miniac or a Ninjon or a 52 miniatures. I honestly do paint it like I paint terrain. You know, I block out colours, I use a dry brush and I wash it with oil wash because I just have no patience whatsoever. I mean, that's a lie. I mean, sometimes if I have to pot like 3,000 beads as rivets on a spaceship, I can do it. I have the patience for that for some reason. But I do go into like a trance. Anyway, color-wise, I'm going for oranges, browns, dark reds, and gunmetal greys. Basically the usual rusty colors. So for skin tone, I'm going to go for like a light blue color. These guys aren't human, obviously. I mean, they might have been a long time ago, but they live on the giant rust planet that I've talked about before. And this planet isn't Earth. You know, this isn't an environmental message of the future of Earth if we don't clean up our crap, or Wall-E. No, this is some fantasy world I've made up. But yeah, they have blue skin. I think they were like a colony seeding ship that kind of went off course and crash landed on this planet. And they've just been inbreeding so long that they're just a bit, you know, a bit peculiar, I guess. So my friend Narb from the channel Narb Makes has made an open source tabletop game, whole rule set, everything like that, and the rusters can be used as an army on it. I'm going to put a link down below, and yeah, let me know if you use the rusters as a kill team or an army, and share it with me somehow. I don't know, maybe on Instagram. Yeah, if you make any of these rusters yourself, share it with me. I'd love to see it. And I almost forgot to say, but so the final step in my paint job that you should not really kind of copy or replicate in any way is using black oil wash. I cover the whole thing in black oil wash, let it run into all of those gaps, and you know, it may look scary, you know, you might be panicking a little bit, but just, you know, leave it overnight, let it dry, come back in the morning, trust me, it looks good. Wait, it's the style that I like, so you know, I shouldn't really be doing tutorials on how to paint minis. There's plenty of other good channels for that. I'm just going to be quiet now. And here we go. Here's the results. Look, can you see that? No, probably not, because it's tiny. These 28mm characters are tiny. But I'm actually, you know what? They look pretty good to me. You know, on a tabletop, they're going to be, I don't know, it's like looking at someone from a 4-story building. So they're going to look good. They look fine. They actually look pretty good close up. But yeah, I mean, shame about the skulls, the Games Workshop skulls that I have that are like twice the size of a normal human skull. It's quite annoying. But I guess they've just been killing Space Marines. Because, you know, who doesn't want to kill Space Marines? If you'd like to support the channel, you can click subscribe. You can click the like button. You can click on any of those links down below in the description. Anyway, I'll see you next time. Bye. So there we go. I've been meaning to make these guys for quite a while. I've talked about it on a few live streams. What do you think? Did you enjoy the video? Was it boring watching me kit bash? I was never quite sure if it would make for good viewing, but please let me know down below. Also, comment down below and let me know which one of these rusters is your favourite. I always find it really interesting to know which ones are the favourites or not. And that's about it from this week. Thank you very much for watching. And I just want to say thank you to my patrons. There should be a little sign coming up right about, yeah, there we go. Thank you, patrons. Now, especially this month, my patrons are the best. You know, they stuck by me. This has been quite a hard month. My whole family had COVID, and the electrician took my whole house apart. So, you know, thanks for